Bardell is here, Democratic political strategist, country music aficionado, and author of Country Music's must-read morning newsletter. It's good to see you. Andrew Breitbart famously said that politics is downstream of culture. What is the country music culture telling us about politics in America?
I think that's telling us that there's just a very, very big disconnect, Leland, between how the elites in D.C., New York, L.A., perceive problems like the opioid crisis and what it actually feels like in real small towns, rural America. Because as you pointed out in your intro, it's very different in Appalachia, in West Virginia, than it is in an urban area in Detroit or Philadelphia or New York. And that's what's so powerful, I think, about Brad's song here and the video elements to it, which he filmed, literally in the coal mines of West Virginia on location, and bringing to life what it looks like when an entire small town community is absolutely decimated by a crisis like this. And it looks very different presentation-wise than anything that we have seen so far on how people talk about this crisis. And that's what the beauty of country music is. That's the beauty of the storytelling that we see from people like Brad Paisley, that they're able to elevate the conversation and hit it home in a way that cuts through a lot of the political BS we see day in and day out.
Yeah, there's something, though, about country music that now is resonating outside of rural America, right? It's rural values into suburban America in a representation. And that feels to me like a big change from when I was a young kid growing up on country music.
Yeah, I mean, I think we always talk about how if you want to change hearts and minds, you have to meet people where they actually are. And if you're going to try to get people to understand a different perspective, a different way of life, art, music, this is the way to do that. This is what's so powerful about the type of presentation we're seeing from Brad Paisley in these first three songs that were released today for his upcoming album, Son of the Mountains, that it is taking it outside of Appalachia so that everybody can see, wherever you live, this is what the lived experience is like for these people right now. And on some level, when you see their pain and you see their truth, and you see in that video the anecdotes from real life victims of the opioid crisis, it hits home. It's something that we can all universally relate to.
Yeah, the most famous singer in America right now was a country singer, is no longer. I'm, of course, talking about Taylor Swift, 385 million followers across all our social media platforms. Are we being clear-headed enough in Washington about how influential these cultural figures, whether it be country music or Taylor Swift, who sort of has now transcended country music just into music, how influential these figures are in American politics?
I think it's interesting because for so long, when we have that conversation about influencers and celebrity and culture, oftentimes we think about the lefty activists really in a lot of ways. But here we're seeing the rise, really, in Taylor notwithstanding, of what I think are the blue-collar activists, the blue-collar influencers, and people like, whether it's a Brad Paisley or even most recently the Oliver Anthony, Richmond for Richmond thing, that's something that happened very organically. Also, like the Aldean song, became the #1 song in America, not just in country music, in America, on the Billboard Hot 200 chart. It's like, that tells you that there's something that's being tapped into.
I want to get you on this because you may have brought us to the intersection, right? Which is a group of people who feel forgotten, both by the left and the right. Sort of that if you go to Appalachia, they will tell you that, right? That politicians from neither side speak to them. That's what a lot of these songs have talked about. Richmond, north of Richmond, try that in a small town, and now Brad Paisley's piece. That was what RFK talked about today. Looks like he's going to announce on October 9th an independent run for president. Take a listen.
We're going to have to rewrite the assumptions and change the habits of American politics. We're going to tap into a mighty surge of people power to reclaim an honest, peaceful, just, and prosperous America.
We're going to look back on this as sort of the wild card that came into the 2024 presidential race?
It remains to be seen. I think that RFK, he's such an interesting cat, right? This is a guy who started as a Democrat, has the most famous last name, perhaps, in Democratic political history, but still aligned at times with figures like a Steve Bannon and a Roger Stone and a Tucker Carlson. Now he's running as an independent instead of a Democrat. This is someone who, while he was running as a Democrat, had higher approval ratings with Republicans than with Democrats. So it's like, I don't even know what to make of that. Is there that there are people on both sides throughout this country who feel left behind, who do not feel seen, who right now are not being spoken to by the current list of people that are running for president? Absolutely there is. There's no doubt about that. Is RFK going to be the guy that's going to tap into that successfully? I have my doubts, but we'll see how it plays out.
All right. Well, RFK supporters, country music fans, there is a correlation there. Kurt, it's good to see you as always, my friend. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend out in California.